What it do, baby? It's your boy Baki back with another one. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. If you don't know, I've been basically completing every single FromSoftware video game that they've ever made. I've been doing this for about 3 years now. It started in 2021. Now I haven't been doing them just straight through. I've taken breaks because I wanted to play new games that have been released, you know, take a break, breather, and everything else. But I did want to start talking about these games and maybe, you know, opening people's eyes to them a little bit more, and maybe, you know, the company as a whole. So a lot of people consider FromSoftware the Souls guys. Those are the guys that make all the Souls games. But before they did all that, they actually started making games in 1994. Their very first release was in 1994, December 16th or 18th. I'm not sure the exact date. We never got it here in the States, but it was in Japan only, I believe. I'm not even sure if they released it in Europe. I think it's Japan only release. Never came here in the States. But it's an amazing game called Kingsfield. And I wanted to talk a little bit about it. You know, the things I liked, the things I didn't like, and then just do kind of a little talk through about some of these games and, you know, share my experiences with them. Kingsfield's a complicated one, man, because I really enjoy a lot of what the game has to offer. But I also have so many problems with the game in general, especially this first one. First off, the game's ugly as hell. There's not really anything you can do about that in a sense either. The game just doesn't look good. All of the graphics look kind of terrible. The enemies look kind of terrible. Everything just has a very basic look to it. But you have to keep in mind that this is 1994. So with that being said, that gives me a little bit of leeway to not be as harsh on the graphics and everything that's actually being implemented. The game's actually pretty fast. There's not much loading in the game. It's very open in a sense that there's 5 floors that you have to complete. Basically, it's a first-person dungeon crawler, as you can see with the stuff you're looking at right now. It has its merits in a sense that it's truly an adventure, and you start with a sword and 1 light magic attack, and by the end you're able to heal yourself and do magic sword attacks and do all types of crazy things. Like, you really do go on an adventure, sort of like a Zelda game in a way, but much more dungeon based. And what I love about the game is it's very much a wash and repeat loop of you beat enemies, and as soon as you beat enemies, you get experience directly from them. And then sometimes you'll slash an enemy and it'll say level up, and you'll get that level up, and you, next thing you know, it's 2 slashes on the enemy instead of the 4 that it took. Or you find a new weapon, and the weapon has different attributes to them. So basically, when you're mobbing around this game on the PS1, you know, you got to think back in the day, what games were like that on the PlayStation that you could play in 94? There really weren't any. And I think that that is what helped FromSoftware kind of stand out already as a company, even with this first game. Even though it has its flaws, like I said, it's crusty. A lot of the textures look the same, but there's so much like nuance and awesomeness to it. For example, when you are progressing through the game, there's a sanctuary that you're finding, and it's essentially a sanctuary of this forest warrior who used to be amazing and then passed away, and they built this place for him, and it's now become the Royal Graveyard. Remember those words, the Royal Graveyard. It'll come up in later games. And so you're in this Royal Graveyard exploring this wonderful place that they built to pretty much like worship this guy almost, you know, but it's gigantic. It's not just some small thing. And like I said, it's 5 floors. By the end of the game, you're doing crazy magic attacks. You have tons of abilities, tons of weapons, tons of information, which I think is very crucial. By the end of the game, I could walk from the end of the game to the beginning of the game almost easily without ever looking at the map, even though the maps look pretty crazy. Like, I could show you a floor of the map and you'd be like, okay, that's pretty wild. It's one of those games that I recommend for people who've been through a lot. See, if you didn't know about me, like the reason I even started doing this FromSoftware marathon in general was because I have felt that I've been playing so many games that were like mainstream, and I wanted to start digging a little bit deeper into games and really experiencing things at a face value without anybody's opinion of them or anything else. Me just finding and exploring games and then finding things that I love. Somehow this series, Kingsfield, has turned into my favorite series of all time. I initially played it in 2017, 2018, and I didn't play this one. I played the second one. So my initial order of Kingsfield went 2, 3, 1, 4. Okay, and I'm sorry, 2, 3, 4, 1. Pardon me. 2, 3, 4, 1. That was my initial order of the games. And you know, when you play them in that way, it kind of feels different than when you play them actually in order. And I'll explain why in the later games. Those who know Kingsfield know exactly what I'm talking about with Kingsfield 3. But Kingsfield 1 takes a lot of steps in the right direction and feels amazing to play. You don't feel like you're in your menu dealing with attributes and numbers and stuff all the time, because the game does that for you. When you find a dope weapon, you put the dope weapon on. You're not using that dope weapon and annihilating whatever you see that was potentially a problem or an issue earlier in your path. You know, it's very much just a dungeon crawler. It's 5 floors of amazing. There's not much for me to dive into here deeply. There's a bunch of firsts here though, so this is something else that you kind of gotta pay attention to. So some of the firsts that are in this game is this is the place where the Moonlight Sword is created. This is also where you see that the dragons are the ones kind of behind everything. So Goyra and Seath are the dragons that kind of make everything happen, if you will. It's actually pretty interesting. Goyra, I believe, creates the Moonlight Sword, and Seath creates Darkslayer to fight Goyra. So they create each other's swords. So instead of it being like Legend of Zelda, where it's one sword that matters, it's really 2, but not until Kingsfield 2 and 3. And you know, I digress. That's way later on. We're supposed to be talking about this game. So my initial experience with this game was kind of whatever, because I had just played 2, 3, and 4, and then going back to 1 kind of fucked it up. So I waited 3 years till 2021 and decided to start playing it then. And my experience with it then, even in that moment, I have it all recorded, still felt the exact same as it did in 2017, where if you've never played the game before and it's your first time playing Kingsfield, it will feel like an adventure, dude. You might get stuck, you might have problems, you might have issues where you don't know what to do or anything else, but you know, you can use the internet. It's not illegal, you know what I mean? Or you can just really search and beat your head against a wall, man. And it works though. Like literally beating your head against a wall in that game works to where you learn the map, you start memorizing things, and the world itself becomes so much more immersive. Again, the only time this game loads is when you change levels. So when you load onto a floor, that floor is everything. There's no loading, there's no nothing, and you can just go, you know, so you can really feel like you can get lost in an area of this world for a very long time. And I think that is what is so amazing about this game. Again, this isn't a review. This is more like my talk through experiences with each of these games. I just wanted to start getting them out, you know what I'm saying, before it gets too long in the tooth and I have to do it all over again. Right now, if you wanted to know like what games we're on, we just beat Demon Souls on the PS3. So that's how far down the list we are. We actually skipped a couple games just because of situations and everything else. After Demon Souls, we're doing Ninja Blade and Ace 2, Another Century Episode 2. So that's kind of where we are in the From Software marathon. I should put it up, put myself around it or something like that. If you see it, there's not much more else here to really discuss about Kingsfield 1, except that it's just already, you can see that the company is willing to break new grounds and make moves that have not been done before in gaming already, you know. And that's kind of what made me want to start playing From Software games. And I had found Kingsfield before I found the other games. See, I've never beaten or played any other Souls games. Demon Souls on the PS3 is my first Souls. I haven't played any of the other Souls yet. So that's kind of why I've been doing it. So this has been a really great time. So far, I think I've beaten close to 35-ish, 36-ish From Software games. And it's been a great time. It absolutely has. They almost have no bangers. So I want to talk about some of these games, show you guys some footage. You know, if you don't want to see the final boss, go away now, beat the game, do all of that. I'm going to show you the final boss, and then I'm going to talk about Kingsfield 1 Remake for like 4 or 5 minutes, all right? So the final boss is absolute trash in this game. I absolutely hate it. There's no way to really hit the enemy besides magic. So if you've been using sword the whole time, which you probably haven't, you've probably been using magic, but if you've been using sword the whole time and you haven't been using your magic doesn't get better. Everything gets better as you do in that game. So as you use your magic gets stronger. As you use your sword gets stronger. And you have to use it. If you don't, then it doesn't get stronger. And that becomes an issue when you're fighting the final boss. Now the final boss is actually really easy if you know the right weapon to use, which is the wind cutter, except in the Kingsfield remake. And the Kingsfield remake is a remake of the first game that came with Sword of Moonlight, which was a basically like a level creator that they put out on PC in the early 2000s. You can still look it up. You could play it actually if you want. I just beat it not too long ago. And it's one of those things where in that game you can't use the weapon. You can't use wind cutter at all because wind cutter is absolutely busted in that game. Half that game doesn't work, by the way. It takes like a good 40. It took me a good 30 minutes to kill the boss in Kingsfield remake. But in Kingsfield 1, if you're cheesing it, it takes you like 10 seconds. But yeah, that's the final boss. He's okay. The game overall, though, by the time you get to this point, has been such an adventure, and the final area is so hectic and hard. It's not easy. It's not a walkthrough. You're fighting tons of giant versions of enemies you've already encountered. You're fighting these fast demon dudes who have these lightning bulbs that can just like drain down on you, even if you're inside of places. It's a hard area, man, but it's fun because all of that work that you've put into you becoming strong has finally paid off. All of the dope armors you've acquired, all of the dope items you've acquired, all of the dope weapons you've acquired, all of the dope magic you've acquired or learned yourself have all helped you prepare for this moment in this final floor 5, which is just crazy pandemonium. And then, like I said, the final boss is kind of whatever. But that's Kingsfield in a nutshell. It's a wild first-person adventure game that really takes you on an adventure, man. But it's ugly. It's not the hottest looking. It's kind of short. It's on the shorter side. You can beat it first time probably in under 9 to 10 hours, maybe. I would say. I wouldn't say it's that much longer. I usually can beat it in one stream if I can. Like it's one of those things where I can beat it in like 6 hours now or something like that. Which I'm sure that's obviously, you know, speedrunners break that kind of stuff, but I'm saying casually about 6 hours now or something like that it would take me. But yeah, man, that's gonna be it for me on this little talk through of Kingsfield 1. If you guys got any questions or anything like that, let me know below. If you want to just talk, you know, from software games, or, you know, wonder my opinions on any other games, let me know. I'm just gonna keep pushing these bad boys out. You know, I'm sure they won't reach anybody, but that's fine. You know what I mean? I don't really care. Either way, I just love FromSoftware. It's definitely my favorite. They're definitely my favorite gaming company, even though I haven't even played any Souls games. Isn't that crazy? And we'll talk about why as these games progress. Like I said, it's kind of hard to talk about more games because I don't want to ruin the path we're taking here. So I appreciate you guys if you guys stuck through. If you wanted me to give it a review rating number, I guess I would give Kingsfield 1 a 7 out of 10. It's a solid experience that is hindered solely by the hardware and the ability of the team that was utilizing it at the time, not knowing the capabilities of what they could do. Boom bap. Here we go, guys. I appreciate y'all, and I'll see y'all on the next one, baby. Peace. All over. First KF, baby. Knocked down. You beat it, y'all. The path to the dark world was closed, the battle was won, and the legend lived on in Verdite. But the days of peace may not endure, as long as the evil magic in the veins of Verdite, someday one will strive to open the dark door again. John's dreams to become a swordsman who surpassed his father was finally realized. Now to carve a name toward the world to prove that he and his father had lived. John overcomes a deep sorrow and begins some shit, and who knows what the future holds. Beautiful. Love this fucking game. Some shit, yeah, I don't even know. You're gonna be piloting an Armored Core board? Armored Core plays the exact same as Kingsfield games. It's the exact same controller scheme. All the time I watch he plays, I don't think I've ever seen the end. Bro, that ending was actually pretty wild, hard. Like, you had to be on your P's and Q's. If I didn't go grab those other dragon fruit, I probably wouldn't have won that fight. Like, if you don't 100% these games, you end up for a really hard fight at the end. And at least in 1, 2, and 3, and 4, the ending's kind of stupid. Well, not really, but it's a lot easier. FromSoftware, baby. First fucking game. Dunzo, bitch!